produce income for you as long as you live in it. Is that simple enough? It's not an asset. It doesn't pass the smell test. It doesn't put income in your pocket. You got to have a place to live. I'm glad you own your home. That's fine. I'm not telling you to go sell your house. I'm just telling you, don't look at it as an asset. It'll never make you money unless you decide to sell it and go rent a place, an apartment, and back down the hill again. And sometimes you may need to do that. But here's what I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get this thing gone that our house is going to save us. What just happened in the real estate bubble? There were people who had $100,000, $150,000 equity in their homes gone in an instant. Literally gone in an instant. They're still stuck at level 1. Now they lost their job. How's level 1 working out for us? Look, it just doesn't put you in a position of strength. And so that asset, if you go to the bank, I'll tell you whose asset it is while you're paying it off. It's the bank's. You know how I know that? It's on their balance sheet, not yours. You go look at the bank's balance sheet and your house is on their balance sheet. And it's an asset. They own it. They've got cash invested. If you look at their cash flow statements, they'll show cash invested in your house, and they'll show income as the interest you're paying on it. They're doing well with your house. They're doing quite well with your house. And so you look at this thing from a perspective of, is this thing going to make me any money? It's just not. Don't expect it to. Enjoy your house, but don't expect it to make you money. Right? We've got to go somewhere else. We've got to go to level 2 and hopefully eventually level 3 if God's called you to own a business or some other means for bringing in level 3 income. Now, liabilities are those things that take it out of your pocket. Debt is a demon. I didn't mean that literally. You folks out on the internet, I'm not nuts, just about half crazy. Debt will put you in bondage. It will constantly keep you in a position where you can't move. I explained this, I think, in session 1. How many times have you ever sat in a service and God brings up a need? Just recently, my wife and I had the privilege to match the offering at the ministers' conference. Why? I just like doing that. It's a lot of fun. And then what I like to do is get up and preach you to get the offering up. That's the way I like to do it, actually. It's just fun to do that way. But you know what? 30 years ago, I couldn't. There's no way. I hadn't done all this. Because we've done all this, then you got the money. When God says, you know what? I'd really like for you to match this thing. For every dollar everybody else gives, you give one. That brings you know what I've learned? I've done this many times. And what happens is when you do it, the offering will be 30% more than it would have been otherwise. Because it's your chance to double your money. And here's what I do. I ask God to give you credit for it. That's good. So in doing that, you've got to have assets that bring you income. You're paying your living expenses down here in level 1. But this stuff up here, you see the purpose, tithe and give, it's always up here at the top. Not the last thing I'm thinking about. When my wife and I started doing this, my dad was a big giver. And it honestly is easy for me to do. It's kind of a natural thing. Maybe it's supernatural, but it just feels right to do it all the time. And she came from a family where, you just didn't do that. And so, the first 5 or 6 years we were married, she'd look at me like a calf at a new gate when you want to give. Now I have to chase her some, but back then, we had to find an agreement on how we're going to do this. Because giving, guys, let me tell you something. You can't outgive God. I dare you to try it. He will bless you beyond anything you could ever imagine. And if you add stewardship to that, you get this. You get multiple levels of income. If your river of riches is doing well, God bless you. But you want all the tributaries flowing into that river you can get. Feed that thing. Keep focused. Don't go do a bunch of wild, risky junk. Lose what you got. That ain't going to work. Use wisdom, counsel. Find out what's right, what works. I'm not qualified to give you investment advice. It's against the law for me to do it. But there are ways you can invest money. I can tell you what I do. I just can't tell you to do it. One of the things that Patsy and I do is I invest in, just to show you how big of a risk taker I am, I invest in something called municipal bonds. Those were really good investments a few years back. Now all the cities are going broke. But let me tell you what I do. I only invest in AAA rated, insured, tax-free municipal bonds. How many of you knew they even existed? AAA rated, that means that here's a AAA is a credit rating. It's what our government just lost one of, right? AAA rating means this city always pays its debts. Well, I don't trust them, so I want it insured. So they have to buy me insurance to pay me off if they can't. And just as an added bonus, it's tax-free. I don't pay any income tax on it. So I buy these, my broker has a wide open carte blanche. He's calling me when I was in Africa. He said, I found two. Takes 10 grand. You want to jump on it? Do it. The reason is because these things come up on the market, they're gone 15 minutes. Especially in this environment. Because they pay about 4 to 5%, and by the time you add in the tax-free part of it, in somebody like me in my income bracket, it gets me close to 8. Hey, that's better than a sharp poke now with a sharp stick. I'll take 8%. So I just stack these things up. He's looking for them. You got to have a broker. My broker's born again and spirit filled. That's the only kind you ought to have. Amen. That don't mean they're all good just because there's born again spirit filled, but it helps. And my guy, he and I have an understanding. He knows exactly what I'm looking for, and he knows that I'm going to pull the trigger when he calls me. It's not somebody that's just blowing smoke. And he works for me. That way I get him to work for me. These bonds are hard to find. You got to get out there and look in the marketplace for them. They come up for sale. They last that quick, they're gone. It's things like that you got to get educated on and find that will give you the ability to do these other levels of income. But you got to focus on it. You got to have a plan. Let's move on. The key to building wealth. How many of you are interested in building wealth? So here's the key. Remember, no matter what else I say here, the key to wealth is leverage. The key to wealth is leverage. You got to find something to leverage. Some people leverage real estate. Some people leverage people. Some people leverage money. Find something to leverage. When I started my wealth building leveraging people. Now I do all four. Real estate, people, money, and leverage. Now, I had somebody come up to me after one conference I did, and she said, you leverage people? She thought I had slaves or something, I guess. I'm not sure what she thought. I said, no, that's not what I do. What I do is I use the gifts and skills and abilities of other people to build wealth with. Think of it this way. Here's what leverage is. How many of you understand leverage? You know, remember when you're in high school and they show you the picture of the old fulcrum with a big, some of y'all may be too young to remember this, have a big rock with a pole used as, it's called a fulcrum. And you can lift, I think it's 8.5 times the weight by being out here. Depending on how long the pole is, how much weight you can lift. And that gives you leverage to lift an extra amount of weight. Well, that's what we're talking about here. So in other words, if I started a company, I'm one man. I have so many skills, so many talents, so much time. Once we get to the end of that, we're done. Right? That's it. Can't do any more. But what if I've got 300 more? See, if I ask you today, would you rather have all the income I can personally produce in a year, or would you rather have all the income that my 800 and something employees at Global can produce? See, I knew you're no ordinary dummy. Some of you go, Global. Sure, you'd want the income from Global. Why? It's leveraged. So that's what I'm talking about. You find things to leverage. If you're going to leverage, listen, this is not leveraging. Buying a piece of real estate for $5,000, I mean, where your mortgage is $5,000, $10,000 more than the place is worth. That's not leverage. Being upside down. This is why you want to be able to set aside money for seed as investing, because you want to be able to invest in these things with equity, strong equity. So that's the key to building wealth. Once you're out of debt, you can begin real wealth building. The first thing to think about when you begin investing is the need to invest in assets. An investor defines an asset differently than a lender. An asset is an investment that produces income, or an investment that reinvests its earnings and increases in value. This is one of the things I do in our companies. We have by policy of the board of directors in our companies, only a small percentage of our net income can go out to me, shareholders, or the managers. You say, what? Well, the reason for that is so that we can reinvest the profits into the company. Because here's what I've seen happen in my time in business. Guys like me who start companies, S-corps, where all the income flows through to them for tax purposes, what they'll do is they take it all out. You know, they make $1 million this year, they take $1 million. You're asking for trouble. So we leave probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 75% of our income stays in the company. That makes it strong. That gives you a balance sheet that's stronger than 10 acres of garlic over time. I'll tell you what happened to me. Just to give you an idea how important it is to do these things like this, because when I started Global, the guy who originally invested in Global, born again, spirit-filled, I actually served with him on a board of elders at our church. Is Greg already gone? Greg knows him very, very well. He's quite a wealthy man and has done it pretty much like we're teaching it. One of the greatest mentors I've ever had. And Jim came to me back in the 80s, and he knew my reputation. We were both in the same business. His business, he had some bad management, and he shut the company down. Now, he had a big printing company and other things, but he had a company like Global, and so he shut it down. And he came to me in 1988, and he said, look, you know, I know your reputation. I know who you are. I know what you've done. He said, look, I've got this company. And he explained to me, and I knew all about it because we tried to put him out of business. So he said, would you come and talk to me about reviving this company? I said, sure. So we went and had lunch. He said, if you'll come and take this company over, you build it. He said, you do it exactly like you want to do it, I'll give you half of it. That's how the prophecy came through, the word that was spoken over me, that God will give you your own company. You won't have to strive, struggle, strain, or borrow money for it to happen. That's how it happened. He put up the money, and that's how I ended up owning half of it. Now, here's what happened. First board meeting, he looks across the table at me, and he says, I'll make an agreement with you. For 10 years,